This is where it all started, the Nothing Phone 1. And then we moved on to this guy. Let's get the glyphs going. We've got the Nothing Phone 2 here. But then we had the Nothing Phone 2A, a slightly cheaper, more affordable version. You can see they've limited to the glyphs just the top half here. Really, really like the 2A. And then just a few weeks ago, we had this special edition 2A, which is very R2-D2. I actually love this design. But now, let me introduce you to the Nothing 2A Plus, which, despite the Plus name, is actually the exact same size as the 2A, as you can see here. Initially, I thought the Plus would be bigger. It's not. So what exactly is the 2A Plus? What makes it stand out, and why would you want to consider buying one given it's actually a little bit more expensive? Well, essentially, it's a slight refinement and a slightly higher spec version of the 2A, as we get a new processor, a new selfie camera, a slightly refreshed design with some new materials, and a couple of other tweaks here and there. Otherwise, it's exactly the same. Same screen, same software, same flashy glyph lighting. So let's start on the outside, and we get two new colors with this very snazzy gray and also a new refined black model. I really do like this. It kind of feels like they've just taken the 2A Special Edition, I still can't unsee R2-D2, but kind of made it more like a monochrome flavor with a hint of silver. And I really love this contrast with a kind of metallic finish on the inside. The review guide for this tells of fusions of nano coating and proprietary ink formulations, anthropomorphized NFC coils with a sort of eyes, brain, and body aesthetic. Marketing fluff aside, it does have a lot of character. Like the 2A though, the 2A Plus here's glyph lighting is still reserved just for the top half of the phone. I think that cuts down on their costs a little bit compared to the Nothing Phone 2. You can see you've got the full back body there with its lighting. Some people think it's a bit gimmicky. Obviously you can only use it when the screen's face down or away from you, but you know, it sets it apart from every other black glass rectangle on the market. I quite like it. And assuming you're pretty close to your subject, you can also use it as a bit of a fill light. But aside from the new colors and a few material tweaks, everything else is the same as the 2A. Same size, same weight. It's a 6.7-inch screen, but it weighs just 190 grams. It's 8.6 millimeters thick, Gorilla Glass 5 on the front, IP54 splash and dust resistance. So it is a big phone, but like the iPhone, the rounded corners and particularly the lighter weight actually makes it very comfortable to hold and use. And the screen is still fantastic, especially at this price point. As I say, 6.7 inches, 120Hz AMOLED. It's a Full HD Plus resolution with brightness peaking at 1300 nits in outdoor HDR use. And I do also appreciate we have a 2160Hz PWM, or pulse width modulation, which can help reduce eye strain, particularly at lower brightnesses when you're doom scrolling in bed at night. But really there are two headline upgrades with the 2A Plus, with the first one being the chip. Nothing say it should be about 10% faster, and that's roughly what my tests show as well. And side by side with the Nothing Phone 2 and also the Phone 2A, and you can see that it is a more significant boost in the graphics department. But still some way behind the regular Phone 2, which uses an aging Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. And the new chip is paired with the same 8 or 12 gigs of RAM with 128 or 256 gigs of storage. So the new chip gives us a nice little boost and I guess makes it just a bit more future-proof, but it's not a game changer by any stretch. Still though, it performed well in the games I threw at it. Diablo Immortal ran smoothly at medium settings even during some pretty heated combat, and you can also toggle on performance mode in the game menu if you don't care about battery life and just want a few extra frames. Speaking of battery though, inside here they've squeezed in a 5000 mAh cell. Now that is the same as the regular 2A, but I've noticed a couple of small changes versus that. I actually ran an overnight 12-hour YouTube test at 50% brightness. That's the only way people watch my videos, if I just put on a tech chat playlist, run it through the night. But I noticed after 12 hours, this still had 2 percentage points more, 31 remaining versus 29. So ever so slight boost there. Although on the flip side, during the 3D Mark Extreme Wildlife test, because we do have a slightly higher powered chip, this actually used 2 percentage points more battery. Overall, probably evens out to be the same. What is different though is the charging. We now have 50-watt wired charging with the 2A Plus versus 45-watt on the 2A. Again, not a big difference, so about 10% faster charging, and a full 0 to 100 will take about an hour. Still though, unfortunately, no wireless charging, which is disappointing. Let's talk about this camera. Won't take too long because it's exactly the same as the regular 2A. The only difference is the front selfie camera, which we'll test in a second. But I'm shooting this at 4K 30, still no option for 4K 60 unfortunately, but maybe for the price we can forgive it. But yeah, this is my little hometown on a beautiful day. And switching to the front camera, the first thing I noticed is that I can now shoot in 4K with the front selfie camera on the 2A Plus. Still limited to 30 FPS, but the regular 2A tops out at 1080p. So high resolution there. I'm holding these at arm's length ahead of me. Get the sun directly on me. That was very bright today. See how it copes with the very shiny forehead there. What do we think? Much different? Now, even though on paper the main and ultra-wide lenses are exactly the same as the 2A, there are some very subtle differences. We've got a slightly stronger bokeh on the 2A Plus here, and the lighting on these petals have a more natural shadow. It's less flat looking, as if the dynamic range has been improved. And there's the tiniest bit more texture to shots, but it's pretty trivial. However, switching to the front-facing camera with its new 50 megapixel sensor, up from 32 on the 2A, selfies are noticeably sharper with more texture, better dynamic range, and while it can still look a little bit over-processed in shots, overall it's a decent step up. But the camera as a whole, I reckon, does a pretty good job with its 50 megapixel main lens. We don't have a telephoto, but the high resolution of the main lens gives us a good quality 2x crop. And we also have a 50 megapixel ultra wide, so technically it's a triple 50 megapixel setup. Portrait shots are fine in good light with the main lens, although the bokeh can look a bit artificial, and I don't know what's happening around these leaves. To be fair, Nothing have been pretty good about improving the camera with updates, so hopefully this gets better with time. The main lens does also have OIS and EIS stabilization built in, which handles these old cobbled streets pretty nicely as I walk along shooting in 4K. Of course, I also decided to make this video on the hottest day of the year so far, so please ignore my sweaty t-shirt. One thing I have noticed though, shooting with the camera, is that if you do record at 4K, you can't change between the lenses. So whichever one you start recording at, you are stuck at, whereas you can switch between the lenses when shooting at 1080p. Also, can I pause it? Yes, I can. I can pause the video. Can't rotate the camera between the front and rear though. But yeah, just a thought. My only criticism would be that there aren't a ton of modes and options to play with, although there is an expert mode if you want to tinker. And also, of course, the small-ish sensors can struggle in lower light. Now, if you've used a Nothing phone before, this will all feel very familiar to you, and this is actually running NothingOS 2.6, running on top of Android 14, and it is one of my favorite UIs, one of my favorite softwares on an Android phone. It feels as fast as a Pixel, and there's no bloatware or ads, and we get some really useful widget options, tons of customization, whether you want a colorful traditional look to your home screen or a more monochrome and minimalist aesthetic. It's just fun to play around with, and it feels like Nothing keeps adding these cool experimental features that then get baked into the next version of Android. Also, the AI-generated wallpapers are actually really good, unlike a lot of rivals. They've also introduced ChatGPT, so you can search with text, your voice, or images right from the home screen. And even though we have a mid-level chip inside, everything feels fast and responsive. And certainly that 120Hz refresh rate helps compared to, say, the Pixel 8a's 90Hz. So far so good then, but there are a few compromises with the 2A Plus. First one, in terms of software, we only get 3 years of support, 3 years of full OS updates, which is kind of the minimum going forward at the moment. Samsung offers 7 years, I think Pixel's on 6 years, so it would be good to see Nothing extend that support a little bit. Still no wireless charging. I appreciate that does cost more, and they probably have to redesign the phone a little bit, but I do use wireless chargers a fair bit, and that is a bit of a pain point for me. And there's also no eSIM support with the 2A Plus, which is a bit frustrating, especially as I travel quite a bit. And also, it's just not that significantly different from the 2A that we've had for a couple of months now. A slight refresh on the design, a slightly faster chip, a slightly better selfie camera, 5-watt faster wire charging, and a couple of tweaks. That's about it versus the regular 2A, and it is a bit more expensive. The 2A starts at £329, or for the same spec, so 12 plus 256, it is 349, which is 50 quid less than the 2A Plus. So at that same spec, 12 gigs of RAM, 256 storage, this is £50 more. Although actually, right now on Amazon, I've seen deals for the 2A around the £300 mark. And I think, given the differences between them, I would probably save £100 and go with a 2A. And actually, if you do fancy going for the 2A Plus at that £400 price point, then you need £20 off the Pixel 8A. And also the Galaxy A55 is in the similar ballpark, so it does have some stiff competition at that £400 price point. Overall though, I really like the new Nothing Phone 2A Plus. It's got such a unique design, solid all-around performance, camera, battery, lovely software, and it's just a fun and innovative company to invest in. So more options are great, and it is a terrific phone at this price point. If you buy one, you will not be disappointed, and I will leave a link below. But personally, I'd probably just stick with the regular 2A, especially now that you can find some discounts on it. But what do you make of the Nothing Phone 2A Plus? Would you consider buying this? And for a similar price, would you go for this or the Pixel 8A? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, a cheeky like and subscribe would be fantastic. And I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.